What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of On the Break. We have a good one coming to you. We're continuing our series of team previews for this upcoming season. And next we have the San Antonio Spurs. So, Trevon, the San Antonio Spurs, they finished with the second worst record or tied for second worst with the Houston Rockets at 22-60 last season. Of course, we all know they had the number one pick. What are your thoughts on this the San Antonio Spurs for this upcoming season?
Um, it's all about Victor at the end of the day. It's all about Victor. Um, and we know he'll have a pretty big impact. He'll be followed throughout the whole year. Uh, I haven't seen this much scrutiny or praise for incoming rookie since I can't remember the last guy. Um, when LeBron got drafted, I was only like 5 years old, so I wasn't really, into the whole understanding of what the NBA could do. So this is the most hyped rookie coming to the NBA that I've ever witnessed. A lot of people were kind of dissecting his performance in the summer league, saying they kind of felt he'd be a bust. A lot of people said it's only one game. Now, obviously, we know he had a very good bounce back game. And a lot of people were trying to tell people, yeah, we tried to tell you. And then all the people who called him a bust the first game were saying, oh, it's only one game. So that's pretty much going to be the theme of the whole NBA season. He will be under a magnifying glass the whole NBA season. The biggest question to me is how is he going to handle the pressure? Um, and I think him being drafted by the Spurs is really a blessing for him. An organization that kind of goes that really has gone under the radar even during their successful years. With Tim Duncan and those guys. So I feel like this is a good landing spot for him. I know a team like Charlotte had a chance to get him, but I think if he would have went to Charlotte, I wouldn't have looked at this as a good situation where he's at, being under Greg Popovich, having so many access to so many legends like Tim Duncan, Manu, David Robinson, Tony Parker, and those guys. So, like I said, this is going to be about Victor. I feel like that's one of the main things is how does he handle all this scrutiny and pressure? Now, on the court, which is the most important thing, the San Antonio Spurs gave up 123 points to the opponent, which was the absolute last or absolute worst in the NBA. Victor automatically forget his offensive game. Defensively is where you're going to see the immediate impact, in my opinion. I feel like he will change that. He's shown elite rim protection, but what I have seen in the summer league, I guess I can say I would have to see it against NBA players, but he's even shown an ability to step out on the perimeter and hold his own defensively. Um, he did pretty well. I didn't know he could, guard the perimeter like that. I was only aware of his rim protection. And I think that's going to make a lot of things easier for the San Antonio Spurs team, which is another young team as far as getting easy transition baskets. It's going to allow players that may not be the best defenders to, kind of funnel guys to him. And I think this is another pretty decent young core. Outside of Victor, you have Jeremy Shohan, you have Malachi Branham, you have Trey Jones, Keldon Johnson, and some other guys that, they've developed under the year that we aren't very familiar with because we haven't followed them like that. But I think, like I said, being under Greg Popovich, but all these other young talent that's pretty good, I think this is just an experiment year. What's the best position for Victor? How can we utilize him? What's his best spots? How many games are we going to play him? Are we going to utilize load management? These are all things that are the main focus for San Antonio, I feel. And as the years continue to go on, they're going to continue to draft good young players, people that fit that culture that they feel can, fit in with San Antonio, and just build around Victor, who is going to be a generational talent, in my opinion. A lot of people project rookie of the year from him. I don't personally think so because I think they're going to be very careful with how many games they play on, how many minutes. how much traveling he does. What are they going to do with him in the weight room? This is going to be the main focus of San Antonio. And I'm pretty sure they'll end right back in the lottery, have another chance to get a top 10 pick or so. I'm not expecting them to make as big of that big of a jump. But just look for the growth of Victor Wembanyama and these guys around him, and what did they do and how did they go about handling his NBA career in his rookie season.
Yeah, no, Victor is going to be a big focus for the San Antonio Spurs, not only this year but for years to come. And having Greg Popovich, they re-signed him to a multi-year extension, so that's gonna be positive for especially for Victor, but not only for him, but the young players around him. And you really touched on Victor a lot, so I'm not gonna you know repeat a lot of repeat a lot of what you said, but just really quickly, I do think Victor is gonna, like you said, make an immediate impact on the defensive end. I feel like you're gonna see flashes of really good things, but you're also gonna see flashes of things that he can improve upon. So I think this is gonna be just a development year for, especially for Victor. And I think that's going to be a positive for him moving forward and for the rest of his career, because he's going to be getting used to the NBA game. I think that's going to be the biggest learning curve. How do you manage traveling? How do you manage preparing your body? Because I feel like he has the right mindset and approach to things. So I feel like he's just going to get better, especially being under Greg Popovich, the Spurs system, and being around these young players. I think is going to be very helpful. Now, moving on to the Spurs as a whole, I feel like Keldon Johnson played very well last year. A lot of people probably didn't notice, but he averaged 22 points a game last year on 45% from the field and actually 32% from three. So he was the primary scorer or primary shot creator on that team. And I feel like he's just going to continue to get better. I really like his game. He can score in a lot of ways. He shoots the ball pretty good from three, and I feel like he's just going to continue to get better. You bring in Devontae Graham. They have Trey Jones as well, who are I feel like they're really solid point guards that they can help with shooting, help bring the ball up the court and get your team into really good sets and things like that. And you already mentioned Jeremy Sokan, which I think he is going to be the versatile player that can do whatever the team needs. He's has a really good frame. He's really good on the defensive end. And he averaged 10 points a game last year. So, he's not just gonna be a slouch on offense. He can figure out ways to contribute offensively. So I feel like this team, they're still figuring, they're going to be figuring things out as well. I don't expect them to be making a big jump also, but I do feel like that they are in a better position than a team like the Detroit Pistons, because they have Greg Popovich, because they have a structure in place already, because they have a kind of a head start in terms of the when you compare them to teams like the Detroit Pistons in terms of development. That's a big staple in the Spurs organization, is developing players into the type of players that make up a team um that they like to be, and a style that they like to play. So I feel like like you said, Victor landed in a very good situation. I feel like Keldon Johnson is going to take that next step. Have a lot of other young players that are going to help build that out. They also picked up Reggie Bullock, so another veteran that's gonna be able to help the young guys out and also contribute, especially on the offensive end with his shooting. So, that's what he's known for, his ability to shoot the ball. So, yeah, I think that they're gonna just make that next step in terms of development. That's what it's all about. And like you said, it's gonna be a lot of eyes on Victor.
Yeah, and those guys that you mentioned, they've been in Pop system for a pretty good time. I mean, Reggie Bullock hasn't because he just got traded. And then like
Mm-hmm.
Keldon, you mentioned he was averaging what you said 22 points on 45% shooting. He's been in
Mm-hmm.
Pop
Yeah.
system. Trey Jones has been a Pop system. He came from Duke. He's a part of a team. He's been around talent. He knows how to run the show, and he knows how to play defense. That's his calling card. Jeremy Shohan, he played for a national championship contending team at Baylor in college. Keldon Johnson came from Kentucky. Malachi Branham, he has a stamp of approval from LeBron. He's an Ohio State guy. He's been in Pop system. So these are all guys that understand what it takes and fit that culture. So they were actually, I mean, they didn't have a great record. Like we already know that, but they were actually, if you watch the game, I got to watch them against San Antonio. I'm sorry, I got to watch them again a game against Dallas, I believe, sometime during the season. Like they really have some talent on that team, and they're competitors. Like they're not a slouch. They're not a bad team as far as overall from an overall standpoint. They have good pieces that I feel like can be a part of a system and an organization. They all seem very mature. So I feel like this team, like we said about other teams over the years, can really improve. And then just getting that extra security from Greg Popovich is also another blanket of security that kind of eases, the room. Everybody knows, what to expect. You're not wondering what decision your coach is going to make. He's at least going to be around. If it's not in the coaching position, he could go in the front office and still be around, have his hands on things. So I feel like just security, having an understanding of what your role is, knowing what the team objective is. I feel like these are a really good group of guys and young talent, like we said, that you can build a franchise with, and then just putting Victor within in between all of that is very promising if you're a Spurs fan.
I think you pointed out some great stuff. That team does compete, even though that we all knew that they were going to be towards the bottom of the rank or the seeding in terms of they're probably not competing for a play-in spot. They're going to be towards the bottom of the league. You didn't get that feeling a lot of the times when you watched them play. You just saw them compete. They seem like they understand like basketball. They understand the space and they understand how to work together and play together. Um, I think it's just figuring out, you know, what the best way for the team to work together in terms of winning, and then also just getting more talent. I think
Yeah,
that's what it was, and then also developing the young talent that they already have. So
yeah.
um, competing and understanding how to play, I don't think that was what was lacking in that team last year.
Yeah, they got Victor, but I didn't get a sense that the players were playing to lose. I feel like they want to win.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a very good sign. I've seen each individual player play before getting to the Spurs, so I have an idea of what the players are as far as competitors and um, team oriented and working the systems. So um, I feel like the only like just to be clear, we're not expecting them to make any big jump next season as far as they might could compete for play-ins. I think they were competing for play-ins both of these past 2 years. Um, but we're not expecting them to make any big jumps immediately. But the whole takeaway from this is just being very optimistic about, the growth of this team because that's always been San Antonio's identity. Like you said, development. They usually don't make big trades or get rid of guys. They usually have a core and just continue to let them grow naturally to when they're veterans. They're, a top of the West every year, whether people talk about them or not. So I envision that trend to continue, with this group that they have right now.